never done such a role. The closest I could come to doing such a role was when I was corporate affairs manager for Zambia and Africa for BP. Um,
Yes,
so
that's where you worked with or worked in the same building as Mr. Chilufi, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you like, I went to university slightly late. So I was in those that I had left when I was in Form 5, those that were in grade 7 were my classmates at UNZA. So in
Oh,
a way,
wow.
I qualified as a mature age student.
Yeah.
But by then I was small enough to hide that I was a mature age
You
student.
could get away with it.
Yeah. And I was late because in part, I had tried to be a Catholic priest, and after 5 years of training, I realized I wasn't going to be better than I wasn't going to do better than the men that I were uh, 1,000 times better in every respect than myself, but they hadn't lived up to the priesthood, so or at least the Catholic priesthood. So I didn't think I needed to attempt something that I knew I could
Yeah.
fail.
So what initially led you to want to go into priesthood?
I
What
I
was the
grew up in a
motivation?
Catholic family.
Okay.
I went to a Catholic secondary school in Luwoshi,
Yeah.
and I remember when I finished Form 5, got 2 acceptance forms, one for the University of Zambia, one for the major seminary. I literally tore the one for UNZA because
Really?
I thought I had a calling, and
Yeah.
I went
Amazing.
to the seminary, and
Yeah.
and 5 years later I thought, would I really be a better celibate than those that I've seen? I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Have you regretted that decision, or you're quite content?
I wish I could have been a priest, but not a
Oh, really?
celibate one, because
Ah,
very few people are living the life of a celibate. So it's not worth doing when you know you are not going to live up to it.
why do you think you wouldn't have lived up to it?
The only example I had was some of the priests I knew who either had children or were rumored to have children, and I looked
Yes.
at them, they were role models. And I
Yeah.
said, if those guys haven't made it, who do I think I am?
What chances do I have? That is fair enough. Now, can I just take you all the way back to the beginning? Where were you born? I want you to give me that rich background,
So
and yeah,
yeah,
and
I,
how you ended up in. Obviously, you had links with the Monawasa administration, but I want the gaps that are missing from that period.
so I was born of um, Bemba parents from Malole, Kasama region, uh, and my father was a head teacher of primary schools in different places. So we moved from one place to the next.
Yeah.
So I lived both in the rural north as well as a little bit on the copper belt, Kalurushi, Chibuluma, and then back to the north when Dad went to teach in the northern province in Mporokoso district. And that's what allowed me then to go to Lubushi Minor Seminary for my secondary school, which was a very privileged form of secondary school at
Yes,
the
yeah.
time.
And it was a natural transition, I suppose, from
Mhm.
the school to seminary. Okay.
Yeah, I'm third out of 8 children, and in a way, I benefited from being the third son in ranking, because
How come?
I say benefited because then my mom didn't have girls. In the village, you needed girls to help you around. So
Yeah.
she then, in a way, brought me up as a girl. And I
Ah,
remember in the village, people used to laugh because I would be walking in the middle of the village going to draw water,
yeah.
and girls would laugh and say, "Oh gosh,
Oh,
he won't marry in this village because he's just a girl." So
he demasculined you. You're doing, and in that generation as well, because you can't be that old, but I don't know, anything 30 years backwards, it wouldn't have been the done thing for a man
no,
to do
no,
female toys.
I am 57, and at
Ah,
that time,
wow.
absolutely, it wasn't done. You had to be a girl to clean around the home, to go and
Yeah.
fetch water from
And
the
which is
well.
quite fascinating that you come across as a very modern man, especially coming to your name, considering
Mhm,
where you're coming from.
mhm.
That's quite fascinating.
I I guess my mom had no choice. She used to say, if I have to bring you up as boys and I do all the work,
Mm.
I'll die very early. She died
Oh.
early in the end, um,
Oh. When
but
did she pass away?
um, um, 20 23 years ago.
Ah, and how
In
old
a
was
way,
she?
yeah. So if you think about it, she was trying to make do with what she had. But in
Yeah,
I look back, I must have been very annoyed as a little boy being sent to do all these
to
things.
draw water.
But eventually it became normal. And I
Mhm.
look back and I say, thank you.
Yeah. And how old was she? Because you said she died early when she passed away.
She was 67 when she died.
That is young. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, bless her. So then fast forward from your feminine tasks at home. How
Uh,
did you escape those?
then I qualified to go to boarding school, Luboshi. From
Mhm,
there, the seminary, as opposed to going to the university.
mhm.
Uh, but because I went as an older person, and when you have been in the seminary for 5 years,
Yeah.
when you get to university, um, uh, people think you are clever. But no, it was just because I went older. uh, 5 years under seminary training, it is so intense. I knew most of the things that third, fourth year students knew.
Oh, wow.
So within second year, professor started telling me that if I continued working as they had seen in the first 2 years,
Mhm.
they would want me to join the staff development fellowship.
No way.
Yeah. So
Really? Fantastic.
and I was still looking young enough for them not
Yeah.
to know.
No, you still do. So
So
you could pass as a 30-something year old. That's why I didn't want to go in the 40s. I was like,
you're very
dangerous
kind, very
territory.
kind.
Interesting. But it's slightly backwards again,
Mhm.
your time in the seminary, because you hear about all these horror stories being in the seminary. Any tales to tell? What was your experience like?
Apart from that moment when I was about to be ordained deacon, and I started thinking deeply, do I have what it takes to? I knew I could be. I thought I could be a good priest, but not a good celibate priest. So there was a slight distinction in my
Yeah.
brain
Was there something that particularly happens that made you question your ability to be celibate?
because I fell in love with one of the parishioners, but
Ah,
it was in my mind. It was never out. But I
yeah,
said, if I'm feeling like that,
yeah.
is this what leads priests to?
Did
And
you act on that feeling?
I asked to leave. At that point, I asked to leave, and I told the girl that I was leaving
So,
because
had
I
you
wanted to
started the
see.
relationship at that point?
Sorry?
Had you started the relationship at
No,
that
it
point?
was still very, very much in my brain rather than a shared feeling.
Mhm. So, how did you muster up the guts to go and approach a random parishioner and say, "Oh, actually, I think I've got feelings for you, and I'm leaving because I've got feelings for you"? They would have been spooked, wouldn't they?
We were we were in a way friends, but not
Ah,
friends that were exclusive. It was
okay.
in, yeah, with other people we were friends. And then I said, and I left first, and then I explained myself later.
Ah.
But I first went to my bishop, who was the then Archbishop of Kasama, later Archbishop Mtale, and I said, you know what, I really don't think I want to proceed. And then he said, no, everybody has those doubts, particularly when you are near completion. Why don't you come and stay with me? And then I said, oh no, if I stay with you, I will comply. I'll end up, in 1 year, I'll end up being a priest. But can I go and be on my own? Then
he'll beat you into priesthood.
Yeah. So I went into university with the thought that I would continue reflecting as to whether that was my life.
Yeah. And what did you study in that first year?
I went back to philosophy and development studies at UNZA. And then I eventually majored. Because I was doing well in both, they also offered me a double major. By then you had to apply to do a double major because you had to look it. You needed to demonstrate that you could handle equal courses in the major and the minor to upgrade them to the same level.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a big deal for me. When I finished, then the head of department, then Professor Dillon Malone, said, oh, I have a scholarship for you to go to the UK. So that's how I first flew out of Zambia to come to England. It was not even a university scholarship. It was a scholarship he found from some networks he had in Germany. And he was a priest. The head of department was a priest, a Jesuit priest.
So that is quite fascinating. Whether happenstance or destiny, who knows? Yeah. And then when you came to England, what path did you take?
I didn't know. I actually got on the plane without knowing what course, because it was so hurriedly done that what I think happened was that offered scholarship to come, but I hadn't worked out what it was I was going to study.
Just a plain scholarship, like an open one?
It was, now looking back, he found for me a Commonwealth scholarship. And then when I arrived, they said, no, this was conditional. We were giving to someone who wanted to study public affairs. And then I said, what's public affairs?
Who even studies public affairs?
and then they said, okay, so you will see as you go on. So it actually just meant you did law, public administration, philosophy, and politics.
Oh, fantastic. What a fabulous combination. It all works.
Absolutely. With hindsight, then you say, yes, I'm glad the accident went that way.
From Abapatiri to a politician. Interesting. You couldn't have made that up.
And
right. So you did that and completed in England.
Yes, they went back and went to teach at UNZA. So I taught philosophy for the first year. In the second year, I introduced a new subject, which I am delighted still gets taught at UNZA. But it was my coinage with the support of the British Council.
What subject is this?
It was business ethics.
That's really good. Fantastic.
And it started by feeling this subject was needed by business leaders, by government leaders. And then when I wrote the course outline, senior people in the university said, Martin, it takes long for someone to introduce a subject. You are just in your second year of teaching. So and then I thought, okay, while I'm waiting to grow, let me start. So I started with the support of Karisto Chitanthia.
Really?
I started featuring on ZNBC to talk about business and ethics.
Fantastic.
And that's where the British Council saw me. And then they said, the then Deputy Director Jack Peace called me and said, oh, that's an interesting subject. Why are you not teaching it? And then I said, first of all, even if I have the course outline, they wouldn't permit me because we don't have enough research reading materials.
Mm.
And then she said, oh, do you mind if we supported you for a month to go to England, go to all universities you know,
That is amazing.
who run business ethics,
Yeah.
learn from what they do,
Yes.
get all the materials, and we will give you £10,000 to buy the books. By then, 10,000 was huge amount of money.
Even now, 10,000 is a substantial amount. And who did this? Which
The
organization?
Jackie Peace, she was the then deputy director of the British Council.
Fantastic. Oh, wow.
And I spent 1 month traveling from one university to the other in the UK.
Which particular ones kind of stood out for you in England?
I went to Leeds. I went to Bath. I went to Cambridge. I came to Oxford. I went to an organization, Prince Charles's organization, which was actually having business leaders who want to lead ethically. So I stayed with them for some time. We became very good friends. I became an associate of the Prince of Wales Business Leaders Forum, and I went back to Zambia, arrived with a stack of books, and the university permitted me to start a new course. I had the newest books and journals you could.
Of course. I mean, it was brand new. So you had to do the scheme of work, you had to do course outline and lesson plans, the lot assessments.
Everything.
Now it makes sense why Patrick said I should speak to you, because I'm a lecturer here as well. On the other side, the other thing that I do, and I teach philosophy, ethics, and religion recently. I know. So he's been saying you need to speak to him. I think you like him. He's way up your street.
Wonderful for the shared interest. Wonderful.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you came back, set up the course at university, and it's still going now. I think they should name something after you, because starting a whole new course at a school, college, later on university.
Yeah, and I had brilliant students. It was the most joyful.
I can imagine. Like, as a pedagogue, it's one of those things that anyone dreams of. So that is brilliant.
So I teach business ethics for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then one evening, oh, by the way, when I finished my studies, I went and got married very quickly.
Just as a by the way, in between all the business.
I arrived and
I snuck in for a weekend and got married.
28 days later, I got married.
You met within 28 days, you got married?
Yeah, when I returned home.
And you've been married for how long?
This is our 27th year.
Wow. That is something.
So it wasn't the person I had seen in the seminary. It was
now it gets interesting. Okay.
And people ask me, wasn't that crazy? How on earth does a normal man do that? So I was a fourth year student at UNZA. The university Catholic chaplain, the late Father Peter Titland, may he so rest in peace, asked me, we don't have the chairman for the Catholic movement of students. Would you like to be the interim chair if you don't mind? Out of friendship, I said, okay. And then he said, oh, there is an Africa-wide conference. Would you attend on our behalf? It was happening at UNZA. So without much interest, I went and sat at the back of the conference room.
Yeah.
And then I saw this person walk upstage to go and open the conference, because they were the national chapter chairperson. It was all young people across Africa.
Oh, wonderful.
So she goes there, and I don't know why I remarked like that. Then I said, oh gosh, if she wasn't married, I was going to marry her. I had no clue who she was, just that she walked there and looked.
Or were you just maybe ready to marry at the time? You were desperate to marry. Do
I'm
you
not
think?
so, it wasn't even a thing for me, but a line like that crossed my mind, and then I
Yeah.
dismissed it. In the evening, um, I was meeting friends to go out, and I was in the conference center, and then I decided, oh, let me look at the list of participants, and then as I was looking, then I saw her name, and then it was prefixed MISS. So, oh gosh, she's not married, so
You're
so
like, yes, get in.
so I abandoned my friends, and then I went looking for
You
where I should.
weren't wasting time, were you?
Yeah. So I arrived on at where the room indicated. Then I knocked, and then I said, she opened the door with a little bit of trepidation, just enough to see the other person. Says, yes, can I help you? I said, I would really like to speak to you. And then she said, can it wait? And then I said, yeah, but I would rather tell you. She said, wait. So she closed, went back, covered herself more. And then I knew she was not comfortable. Then I said, could you leave the door
Ah, yeah.
open? So,
Yeah.
and I'll
So
take.
she's more comfortable in conversing with you.
So then I sat. She sat on the edge of a little bed there. I sat on a chair, and then I said, "Oh, my name is Martin-Kalungu. I currently have a girlfriend, but if you agree to marry me, then I'm going to explain to my girlfriend that I've met someone I would like to marry." And then she said, "You must be drunk. Get out of here."
Mr. Kalungu Banda, is that something that you were in sort of you were used to doing? Just like meet a random girl and tell her, if you said yes, I'll dump my girlfriend.
No, but this particular case, I just felt, and then by then I wasn't even taking any alcohol, so I
Interesting.
politely
So would you
obliged.
say, was that infatuation, or you felt that, like, it was love at first sight? What was it?
in this particular instance, now with a little bit of knowledge, we humans have the capacity to know certain things ahead of time,
I agree with that completely.
and we haven't developed that sense
No.
often enough,
I
because
think we use a minutest part of our brains, especially in that regard. And if you explore that a little bit more, we'll find that there's definitely more
and
to
if
that.
you check most of the stories we know about the creation of some of the businesses, the finding of some of the solutions we need in life, it came as a hunch. But the word hunch does not do justice to that fast-tracked process of accessing some reality before it becomes commonplace and easily identifiable. I think Malcolm Gladwell has a term, and he wrote a book called Blink. In a snap of the finger like that, there are times when we access inner, deeper knowing of something that is real, but not yet manifest.
Not yet manifested,
Yeah.
This reminds me of a Zambian gentleman. I can't remember if he's called Mr. Chilwa. He's, I think he was slightly ahead of his time. He came up with a concept of green cars, like cars that are electric cars that don't use fuel and all that sort of stuff. And in Zambia, obviously, you know the gentleman, don't you?
Yeah, it sounded outlandish, but
yes,
actually,
it sounded terribly outlandish, but now it's the in thing.
Yeah, and when we realize that that's part of how we humans know, we need to learn what are the conditions that allow us to access something from the future. So anyway, to cut the long story short, this is my wife of 27 years.
Fantastic. In 28 days, you get married.
Yeah, we were friends before I left for studies.
Okay.
We remained therefore in courtship. And then when I went back, I got married. We have 2 children, 24, soon to be 25, and 19. Okay. And by the way, my 19-year-old son just wrote this book.
Oh, inspired. Is it on Amazon?
It is.
What's his name?
Neo, Neo.
Neo.
Mm-hmm.
And he's Kalungu Banda as well.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. He's 19.
He's 19. He's studying psychology at the University of Leicester. And yeah, his big sister just finished his degree in neuroscience from King's College in London.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
So it was during that period we were preparing for our wedding that my fiance then and I said, how do we represent equality in this relationship? And then I said, maybe I should change my name just like women change their names.
Now, hold on. You are a Zambian man, a macho man, African man. What were you doing thinking about adopting your wife's name? What was going through your mind?
Because we wanted one thing that could help. Yes, there is the marriage, there is the wedding, but the man remains identified as the same. The woman becomes Mrs.
Yeah.
And then we said, but what about myself? And then I proposed this, and they said, it sounds like a good idea. But we didn't know then which one comes first.
Ah, yes.
And so the only neutral arbiter there was rhyming. To our ears, Kalungu Banda sounded as one name compared to Banda Kalungu.
Banda Kalungu, yeah. Yes.
So that's how the
fascinating stuff. So were you would you, because men can be feminists, do you identify yourself as a feminist or subscribe to feminism ideologies?
I just know that men and women are equal. Whether that is what would earn me the name feminist or not, I just know that men and women are equal. And
you wanted to show that in your house.
I wanted that to be the case in my house, but it also meant that I had to embrace all the things that cross that boundary. It means when I am visiting my mother-in-law and I am my parents-in-law and I am in their house, and we wake up early in the morning, it means if there is a day for mopping the floor, then I mop the floor. If
you were ahead of your time. Definitely. Now it's a done thing. Like in England, your husband will wash dishes and pack lunches. It's no one even thinks twice about it. But those days, that is quite fascinating. Quite fascinating.
But my mother-in-law once said to me, when they came to live with us, she could tolerate me serving her food, cooking for her, and
but so it's like a taboo, wasn't it?
Yeah. When she went back and we visited, and then I woke up early in the morning and I was mopping the floor, and then she stood there and says, "Father Tumbololwa, men here don't clean like that." So I didn't want to have an argument with her. I looked at her, smiled, and continued mopping.
Now, taking you slightly further back to your mom, may her soul rest in peace. Do you think that prepared you for this kind of life or attitude towards equality that you have subscribed to now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So she did a stupendous job
and for the fact that she never stepped foot in school.
You know,
absolutely
this is where
amazing.
Yeah, this is where we tap into knowledge. Obviously, you are a very educated man and your family is, but you can acquire knowledge in different forms, not just like the tradition, the sort of classroom-based knowledge, so to speak. Yeah. That is interesting. Right. So past you getting married, now let's dive slightly into politics. How did you find yourself into politics?
I don't think I ever got into politics, Linda.
You are a chief of staff. You are in the middle of
I worked with politicians, but
you never thought you were a politician per se.
I went in from an administrative point of view. I went in from an administrative point of view. And again, the knowing, when we are talking about, people call it the sixth sense, intuition, whatever. I was busy growing my career. I was one of the 20 identified as the future leaders of BP in Africa. So I was really looking forward to a great career, and I had a fantastic job in every sense.
You sound like you kind of regret. There's a sense of regret in there. There's a slight tone of regret.
Maybe there is a ton of regret, but it was how life shifts in a way we don't plan. Because in that period when we were on a training program, after 1 year, I found myself more and more thinking about home rather than growing the empire of BP. One morning I arrived and I called a friend. By then, emails and internet weren't where we are. I called a friend and I said, could you get me a number to State House? I want to speak to the president. And then he said, oh, Martin, what have you been smoking?
Yeah, what led you to thinking like that?
and like all good friends are, after some time, he gave me the number and I phoned. And after a series of hold on, music, hold on, I actually spoke to the president.
And the president then was?
Mwanawasa.
Yes.
And that's how he invited me to go and see him.
And what did you say? You're skipping very quickly. Hold on a minute. You pick the phone up. Hi, Mr. President. This is Martin. I just wanted to say hello. He was Lamba.
No.
What did you say?
Because I was learning about and being prepared for the leadership within BP. But I found these lessons applicable to anyone, and I wanted to share with the president.
Oh, wow.
And I said, first, when he answered, because I became annoyed when I kept waiting. So
I mean, you were waiting for you can't just expect to be ushered in straight away. A little bit of patience.
When you start getting like, what's your name? Do you have an appointment? And then you have to say no. Is the president expecting your call? No.
Then they don't take you seriously, do they?
And it goes to the next and the next.
I wouldn't say that I've experienced that, Mr. Kalungu Banda, because I've never spoken once face to face, but I've never had the privilege to call the president. So I'll take your word for it. Yeah. So finally, this voice comes and says, hello, State House. And then I said, my name is Martin. I've been trying to speak to the president for the last few minutes. And then the voice went, Mr. Kalungu Banda, this is the president. Wow. And then pause right there. At that point, this is the president. I mean, you don't get to speak to the president every day. What was going through your mind? How were you feeling? I forgot or a bit. I forgot what I had called. and when I recovered, then I completely said the wrong thing. It was true, but it was never to be said. Then I said, I'm really sorry, sir. I didn't vote for you in the last election. Well, that's a good way to start, not? and he laughed. Then he said, at least you are honest about your vote. Now, tell me, why did you want to speak to me? And then I said to him, Your Excellency, I have been for the last 1 year learning about leadership, and I would really like to share with you some of these learnings. And then he said, Mr. Kalungu Banda, this is Wednesday. How about 14 hours on Friday? Wow. Those days the phones were not like this. They had with a little call, and it was in the office. So I actually don't remember saying bye to him. You were just overwhelmed. I put the phone down, and my hand was shaking, and I stood up, and I went to the company president. Yeah. And I said, I need to go back home. Because you were in South Africa at this point.
I was in Cape Town.
Yeah. It's like, I've got to go. I'll come back. I don't know when. I've got an
Yeah.
appointment.
And then he said, no, talk to your manager. My manager was a Zambian called JJ's.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good.
And then they allowed me. I flew. Anyway, to cut the long story short, I had a meeting with the president.
The first meeting, I want to know the intricacies of the first meeting. You arrive at State House. I presume you met at State House.
They didn't. Yeah. First of all, when I'm talking, I just wanted to go back that thing which, okay, I'll go back to that. But I arrived at the gate. They didn't have my name.
Oh.
And then I said, guys, I'm not dreaming. I genuinely spoke to the president. And then this person said,
maybe they thought that I think boys are a lot of you.
Yeah, Mr. Kalungu Banda, do you genuinely think it's possible that the president has a meeting with a stranger and we haven't done any security check on them?
Oh, yes.
I said, sir, I hear you,
yeah.
But I'm also not lying. And then he looked at me and said, in case it's one of those moments when systems don't work,
yeah,
promise me I will walk with you to check the inner desk.
Mm-hmm.
If your name is not there, promise me you are not going to resist to come out. I promised, walked there, they checked, and my name was not there.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
And he was about to usher me when the president was coming from another corridor, and he looked at me and said, you must be Mr. Kalungu Banda. I said, yes,
wow.
sir. I said, come. And that was my chance to leave.
And that was you feeling quite important. Look, I told you I had an appointment with this man.
No, but the drama of not meeting him was much more on my forehead than meeting the president. Anyway, we went there and we sat down. To be honest, the 30 minutes I spent with him, I said things, and characteristically, he was holding his pink pad and red pen. Who writes on a pink pad with red pen? But that was what he would do. And he wrote some things down as I was sharing. And then he said to me, Mr. Kalungu Banda, would you obviously, these are exciting things you are sharing here, but you don't expect me to learn these things at once, do you? Any chance you are free tomorrow, we have dinner together, then I can learn more. And then I said, sir, I just came for this. So yes, I am free.
Yeah.
So this time then I politely said, Your Excellency, could you just tell the secretary to let the people at the gate that I'll be coming
so that they don't give me any hassle. Anyway. So what did you talk about? What did you share with him at the time? Maybe just a couple of things that you could remember.
What I remember was for the second meeting. The first one was, I think I was too excited. I was just saying things, but he somehow found them important.
Yeah.
But I remember the second one. Okay. When I went for dinner.
Where did you have the dinner?
At Nkwazi, the private home of the president.
And what was served?
Again, my suspicion, my memory is faded. I remember there must have been some fish, there must have been some beef.
Like traditional Zambian dinner or fiatsu?
Absolutely, because now I can say that because later on when I went to work for him, that's what, whenever he invited me for dinner, it was very, very traditional. And
oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was, coincidentally, this president is talking about servant leadership. By then I was because BP was trying to evolve a servant leadership model. And I shared with the president about how the servant leadership model works. Yeah. And he said, that's really, really interesting. And I'm cutting corners here. So when I next looked at the watch, my watch, it was midnight. Wow. I had arrived at the president's home at 7:15 p.m.
Really?
Absolutely. And then I said, sir, I need to leave you time to rest.
Yeah.
And then he said, Mr. Kalungu Banda, would you come and train me and the cabinet in the leadership issues you are talking about?
Really?
And Linda, I found myself saying yes, even if I'd never trained anybody up to
Well,
that stage.
that's my policy as well. I always say yes, then figure it out afterwards. If a great opportunity comes, you say yes.
And that's what happened.
I learned that from one of Richard Branson's books. He was like, I never knew how to do anything, but an opportunity came. I always said yes. Then I'll spend the rest of the night figuring out how to do it. Good for you.
That's what happened. I flew back, went to work. I worked another year in Cape Town.
Mm-hmm.
And then I changed jobs. And when I was working for Oxfam, in Oxfam House, the telephone receptionist called and said, Martin, there is someone pretending to be president. Do you want to take the call? and I took the call. And
was it a British person who told you this?
Yeah.
They probably thought it was the king of Zamunda, someone pretending to be that kind of scenario.
Anyway, and then there was the senior private secretary to the president online said, Mr. Kalungu Banda, hold on for the president. Wow. And then
so real.
And then the president said, you didn't tell me you had moved from Cape Town.
And at that time, you had not conducted the training yet, I presume.
No, 1 year.
You just disappeared.
No, because he didn't call me back. I thought
you don't leave the president in the lurch. You call him and say.
The president was supposed to now say, "This is how you follow up."
Ah,
so
wow.
And then he said, "You didn't."
Then he follows you.
He didn't tell me, and I said, I changed jobs and.
Mr. Kalungu Banda.
I think my internet did something, and maybe it was also a warning, because I'm now supposed to dash into. I teach on the west coast of the US.
So. Oh, I see. Okay, I think I've gathered quite a bit, and when would be good to set up like the actual interview? When would be good for you?
I was told that Sunday works best for you.
Yes. Sunday actually works best for me, so I could have you on my show. I think that would be ideal. Would Sunday evening at about 21:30 Zambian time?
Which Sunday?
This Sunday, coming Sunday.
This Sunday will be the 6th.
That will be the 6th.
So that will be 19 hours for us.
Yes. Would that work?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I will advertise this one. It will be tricky to get out of it unless you are in a coffin. Would that be all right for you? 19 hours.
I just wanted to give you some bit of hooks that probably you could use if you were interviewing me.
Sure.
So when President Wanawasa invited me to go and help him to set up the position of Chief of Staff, in the end, I wasn't called Chief of Staff because that would have taken a long process for bringing that in. But he could use his position to create a new job.
Yeah.
So he created a position called Special Consultant to the President. And I had the job description of a Chief of Staff.
Okay.
And then the other bit I wanted so I wanted to mention to you that that principle you talked about to say yes, and then things. If you have to listen from within. If everything within you screams yes, it's probably yes.
Yeah.
So for example, when I said yes, and then eventually the president gave me that role, at the same time, my former boss in Oxfam had gone to work with Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So now, at the time I was leaving to go to Zambia to do this work, it means that I had access. I would, when I came to see my family, which remained here, then I would be invited to go to number 10 Downing Street, and then I would learn how they are working with the Prime Minister.
Fantastic. Did that happen?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. And also, there's quite a bit I wanted us to cover. So that's an interesting fact. And also, you had an altercation with President Wanawasa. I was hoping we would talk about that.
Big time.
Because that's the one I wanted to use as a hook. The man who fought. How outlandish do you think this can be? What happened? Did you physically fight?
No, actually, maybe that is an exaggeration. Okay, the story is that BBC interviewed me after I left him. In fact, the fight came after I'd left State House.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was now back in my Oxfam job. And
what was the fight about?
The word fight maybe is not even fair. He actually disowned me.
Oh, what did you do?
So after I was called, I had an interview with BBC. What was that? Something night.
News night.
News night, yeah. and they were. It was about corruption.
Okay.
You remember the people who had moved things and shortchanged Zambia in this and that, and the courts actually here ruled in favor of the government, but the then High Commissioner sent a cable or a message to Zambia that Martin is jeopardizing the court ruling here, and the president had to act quickly to make sure that the ruling does not mean that we are interfering, because the news said, and the current special advisor to the president of Zambia says the following. So,
who told President Wanawasa this?
The then High Commissioner of Zambia.
What was his name?
Oh, I hope we can spare his name.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mr. Come on. Who was the then? I'll search for you and give you the name.
Okay, but these are historical facts. So they should be already written down. So it's not really. Yeah. But if you prefer to save his name, I'll respect that.
If you mention his name or not, it doesn't really matter. I've written about it in my third book.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So if you search my three books, you and by the way, that's another line of inquiry. My first book was on Nelson Mandela, and again I learned immensely out of that. When we wrote the draft, the publisher in South Africa said, Martin, I know we are not in the business of censorship, but he is such a big name. We have to let him see this before it comes out.
Yeah.
So
was it like an authorized biography or autobiography?
No, it was just a series of stories. You can see it on Amazon.
Okay, I will do.
I picked stories that really made him distinct as a leader.
Okay.
And how he did things uniquely. So then they replied, or Mr. Mandela replied, "Thank you for the courtesy, but we are not in the business of controlling what people say about us. It's their views, and we look forward to reading the book." That's all.
That's good. That's good.
And, I mean, that's real statesmanship.
Absolutely. I like that. So you wrote that book, and then the third book is the one that you talk about.
I wrote a book called, when Manawasa died, then I wrote a book called It's How We End That Matters. Leadership Lessons from an African President. I was just reflecting on my experience of meeting and working with him, Manawasa.
Yeah. It's How We End That Matters. Okay.
Now, the name was Mr. Chibwa.
Oh, Mr. Chibwa. Okay, lovely. Now, I'm interested in the intricacies of the quote-unquote fight, the fallout. So then you were purported to be jeopardizing...
The case in which Zambia was litigating against those who had defrauded the government. And I was talking, I could even find, if I find somehow how the whole story changed from what I had shared on BBC. I will send you some on WhatsApp if I can find any.
Okay, that'll be lovely. And then...
I think the advice was to the president, you need to distance yourself from Martin. And then the president wrote, and it was Frontline.
Oh, really?
Front cover in Zambian newspapers.
Front cover newspaper.
Martin-Kalungu Banda is not my advisor.
Interesting.
So anyway, I tried to call to speak to the president. There was no success because I wanted to say that was not what I said, and that's not how you should treat me. You should have checked with me. We did many things together. I don't think this was fair.
Yeah.
But to his honor, 4 months later, he was going to New York for the UN General Assembly. The office, State House called and said, Mr. Kalungu Banda, the president is having a stopover in London, and he would like to meet you.
Wow.
And I went to meet him in London, and before I could leave, I went with all the evidence I could to show him that he was wrong. As soon as I entered his room, he says, Mr. Kalungu Banda, I can only apologize. I'm really sorry. We misunderstood everything. And then he said, when are you next in Zambia? And then I told him, he says, well, when you come, please do come home. We have a meal like we used to. And that's how when I went back, I went straight to the president's home. And there was something about him which was both fiery but also deep humanity in him.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. And then you had quite a bit to do with this current president. Someone actually went as far as saying HH was in love with you, in love with your work. And I was like, okay, that is interesting. I'll ask him to explain. How did you get HH to be so besotted with your work?
I don't even think he knows my work.
Really?
Yeah, I just had him for the meetings we had as UK Zambians. Twice I would call his number at that time, and then he would answer and say, Zambians in diaspora would like to speak to you. And yeah, Martin, I'm coming. So he would turn up for those meetings, but I don't think he thinks about me as that. No, I wouldn't exaggerate.
But this is other people exaggerating on your behalf. There must be some element of truth in that. But I also understand that you are the first person he offered a position and you turned it down. Is that true?
No.
No?
No, the president hasn't spoken to me at all.
Ah.
I don't even expect him to speak to me. I was just among the diaspora community members.
That is a very good lie, actually. I think I'll still ask you that question because I think that is quite fascinating. Where it could have originated from. Brilliant. Well, I won't keep you. I've got a program coming up as well. So thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, 7 p.m. Zambian time.
Fantastic.
No, 7 p.m. British time.
British time, and then we'll use the same process that we used today to connect here.
Yes, StreamYard. I'll send you a link prior to that, and then we'll use that.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Thank you very, very much. Wishing you a wonderful week.
Thank you.
And thank you for the work you are doing for Mother Zambia and elsewhere.
Oh, thank you so much. And yourself. I mean, you've provided incredible service over the years, but yeah, thank you so much and have a lovely evening too.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye.